So, can anyone say based? The mainstream media has been going on and on and on. You know, I love to equate the amount that they spend talking about something or attempting to push a story to an arbitrary dollar amount. But just think about it. Every single network, independent journalists, games journalists, culture journalists, BS celebrity outlets, to the big boys like the New York Times and the Washington Post, and then of course to TV media, which also has an online presence these days, CNN and MSNBC, the whole structure of leftist media, all of it dedicated to pushing one narrative for not just a week, but for years on end. Donald Trump committed an insurrection, or as Chuck Schumer put it,
senators will have to decide if they believe Donald John Trump incited the erection.
Years upon years pushing this narrative. Let's call it billions, if not frickin' trillions of dollars of media resources poured into pushing this narrative, into creating this story, all of that. And then here we are today, where the whole frickin' thing collapses. Not exactly surprising considering the whole thing was built on weak wood scaffolding. Let's just say it seems like people aren't buying it anymore. Let me show you guys what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, J6. Insurrection. Donald Trump can't run for president. He's getting sued by Alvin Bragg in New York City. When that didn't work, Donald Trump can't run for president. He stole nuclear secrets and flushed them down the toilet. When that didn't work, Donald Trump can't be president. A fake elector's scheme in Georgia. We all know what happened with Fannie Willis. Oh, poor old Fannie. And then of course the last line of defense. Donald Trump can't run for president. Dark Brandon's Jack Smith never loses a case. Trump is done. Okay, we get it. So you know the last line of defense was January 6th, right? The January 6th case, if Trump is indicted, it's over for Donald Trump and he can't be president. And you know what? The polls in the past have suggested that maybe that's the case, but this just hit, and I guess it's time to view the conversation from a completely different perspective. Holy frickin' moly. Here's a Harvard-Harris poll where the question asked, if Trump is convicted for inciting the Capitol riots of January 6th, who would you vote for? Donald Trump leads +8 at 54 to 46. Then they asked the question, if Trump is convicted for RICO in trying to influence the 2020 election results in Georgia, a fake elector scheme, Trump wins by 4 at 52%. And this is a national survey, by the way, with 2,000 registered voters. If Trump is convicted of crimes relating to the handling of classified presidential documents, well then apparently if he's convicted on that case, it goes 50 to 50. Now, this could be an outlier poll, or it could be suggesting a shift in perspective. Previously, the nail in Donald Trump's coffin, the biggest thing that Democrats had on him, January 6th, what they've devoted billions of dollars in resources to promoting, it could be that the Democrat secret weapon is turning out to be one big frickin' dud. The initial shock of January 6th, of course, was the perfect tool for emotional manipulation, the perfect propaganda vessel. But the more time goes on, the more people think about it, the more we get away from it and we're able to view it more rationally or neutrally, the more people start to see all the inconsistencies. And of course, the more we play these clips over and over and over again.
But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
The more people that happen to stumble upon Donald Trump's unbanned Twitter account or X account, where his last tweets are still frozen in time, frozen in history on the day of. Quote, I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful, no violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you. Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on our side, on the side of our country. Stay peaceful. And more importantly, the more people see that in contrast with what the media is saying, or I guess in contrast with the ambition of Jack Smith's January 6th case, which plans to pin the whole thing on Donald Trump. All the violence, his fault, he incited it, despite his clear and repeated calls for peace. and nonviolence, the more people are sympathetic to Republicans on this issue. You know, it feels like this sort of Trump hysteria spell that's been casted on a good chunk of the nation is slowly, person by person, being dispelled. And if you're not buying into the hysteria, if you're not buying into the unhinged craziness, well then the Democrat strategy falls flat. It doesn't work. You become immune to the nonsense. Nancy Pelosi is doing a media tour at the moment, bouncing around essentially telling all the leftist outlets that Donald Trump is a Russian agent still. Oh, and recently promoting the idea that Donald Trump is mentally ill.
Europeans here are worried. They see America and they say America is stepping back. You've dealt with Donald Trump. What advice would you give them?
Him? Have an intervention into your mental health, your political viability. He's really grotesque, and it's really a shame. And I never talk politics when I go overseas, because that's just the way we have always. We've been very bipartisan when we go overseas. We may have our differences, and we criticize the president at home, and I have my hesitation to do that. But he has ventured into the global scene by his chumminess with Putin.
And you know, at one point that rhetoric worked. At one point, people were legitimately scared that Donald Trump was going to start World War III, or that he was going to bring back Jim Crow.
Well, we were on the brink of World War III because Donald Trump took the worst possible option given to him in a slideshow.
In this country, we have begun to overestimate the dangers of impeachment and underestimate the dangers of a deranged president retaining control over a nuclear hyperpower.
We cannot wait around while Donald Trump is in control of the nuclear weapon.
Your objection to potentially going into World War III cannot be procedural.
And now, of course, people like that still exist. How do I know that? Well, people still watch Joy Reid's show. That's pretty much proof enough. But they're slowly becoming the clear minority. And that's what real issues, a little bit of a dose of reality does to you. 3 years of Joe Biden's economy will snap somebody out of the brainwash pretty damn quickly. Not everybody, but in the world of politics, all you need is that 2, 3, 4, 5%. You make those incremental gains. Once a certain section of the population has their eyes opened, that's really all you need to win. And that's kind of the feeling that I get from this poll. People aren't buying that Joe and Nancy, who walked through the Capitol, who had their homes raided and who got dragged through court in DC, they aren't buying that your average Trump-supporting suburban couple are the greatest extremist terrorist threat to the homeland, as Joe Biden's DOJ is putting it through their actions. They aren't buying that Donald Trump, the president who was very clear on the record telling people to be peaceful, they aren't buying that he's guilty of inciting an insurrection when there's no proof of any organized insurrectionist plot. And so essentially this is proof that just because you say something is true, just because you want to speak something into existence, well, it doesn't make it true. The media can spend another $10 trillion if they wanted, trying to convince the American people that an insurrection happened, but just because they say it doesn't mean it's so. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.